Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna. Can't hear you. Hare Rama Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Jai Shri Harinam. Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hari Bol. Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Bol Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Bol Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Jai Shri Harinam Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hari Bol Krishna Hari Hari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Mahayajna ki Jai Shri Krishna Janmashtami Mahosatva ki Ananta Kodi Vaishnavrinda ki Nitai Gaura Premanjana. So depending on which calendar you follow, Janmashtami either falls tonight or it falls tomorrow night, right? But the important thing is not exactly when it falls, but the more important thing is what is the significance of Janmashtami. Many of us have heard this story for so many years, since we were born, I think, right? We've been hearing this. And if we were very young, we would have heard about how Krishna would have been was born in a prison, and how he had 7 other children, before him who were born. The important thing we should recognize is that we don't consider Janmashtami as the birth of Krishna, because Shastras tell us that Krishna has no birth and therefore he has no death. He is known as Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. That means he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahmaji in Shastras tell us very nicely, Govindam Adi Purusham. The original personality in this creation is Govindam. If you read your Bhagavad Gita, and we have many copies of Bhagavad Gita today, which is going to be distributed to all of you as gifts. If you have read your Bhagavad Gita, you will know in the 10th chapter of the 10th chapter, 8th verse of Bhagavad Gita, it is very nicely stated by Krishna, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattaha sarvam pravartate. Krishna says to Arjuna, I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. So it's very clear from Shastric evidence that Krishna is neither born nor does he die. To people who think that he's a historical personality, the Shastras do not state that. For people outside our culture, they may see him as a historical personality. But as followers of the Vedic culture, we understand his true personality. It is stated also in Bhagavad Gita that if someone knows that Krishna's appearance, and now I'm using the word appearance, I'm not using the word birth. If someone knows Krishna's appearance, right? If he knows his transcendental appearance, that he's not of this world. If someone knows and understands and accepts Krishna's activities, his pastimes, his leelas, then for such a person, there is no more birth in this world after he passes. So these are very seminal verses from the Gita, and they tell us very clearly the position of Krishna. The other thing that's very important is that from the evidence of the Vedas, from the evidence of Bhagavad Gita, it is very clear that Krishna is a person. Very often we think that the highest form of God is formless. But formlessness is a feature of God. In Shastras, this is known as Satchit Ananda Vigraha. God possesses three very important qualities. Sat. Sat means he's absolute. You and I are relative. Our sufferings are relative to each other. No one can come and say to the other person, my suffering is greater than yours. We may try, but the other person will turn around and say, you don't know how I've lived my life, so my suffering is worse. And in that way, sometimes we think my happiness is greater than yours, but it's relative, because we can never know each other's happiness or sadness actually. So therefore, Krishna is different from that. Krishna, or the nature of God, right, as is stated in the Bible, the Quran, and even the Bhagavad Gita, is that he is by nature absolute. That means there is no relativity. 1 plus 1 in the material world, right, is 2. But 1 plus 1 in the spiritual world will always be 1. It will always be complete, always be whole. There is nothing to add, there is nothing to subtract. That is absolute. The second feature of Krishna is that he is Chit, Sat-Chit. Chit means consciousness. We are relatively conscious of each other. Again, I have a feeling that you may be in distress, but I cannot really know how much your distress is, and vice versa. You can never know how much of difficulty I'm going through. So we are conscious of ourselves. We are conscious of our loved ones, and very often we are compassionate enough to be conscious of others, but we cannot really know, and we cannot be cognizant of everyone. If we did, we would be God. But Krishna is Paramatma, and therefore he's in the heart of every living entity as your conscience, the voice of your conscience. As we were growing up, we would know sometimes, even without being told, that this is right or this is not right. That is the voice of your conscience. If you read the Bible, it's a nice prayer where it is stated that Christ is the unseen guest at every dinner table. The unseen guest, right, is the notion of Paramatma, the notion of God. And Anand is the product of Sat and Chit. Anand means one who is always blissful. And that is what we are all searching for. Nobody has come to the house today searching for distress, right? Everybody has come here on the assumption that Prabhu and Mataji are going to give them a great time. That's why you're here. If you thought, oh my God, coming here is going to be distressful, you would have given some excuse and not turned up. But you have come. And that is the goal of your life. There is nobody in this room who can safely tell me that the objective of my life is to be sad. Shastras say if the objective of your life is to be sad, either you are a madman or you're a dead man. You have to be alive. And to be alive means to always search for happiness. It is your right. The only difference, the Gita says, is that we search for happiness in matter. But true happiness lies in spirit. When you search for happiness in matter, the problem comes that matter by nature is temporary, right? And when it's temporary, then it becomes very difficult. Sanjeev Prabhu, Hare Krishna, nice to see you. So you see, the nature of matter is temporary. And because it is temporary, it will never give us permanent happiness. How can you run after that which is temporary and expect something which is permanent? It's just not even logical. So very often our happiness is placed and our expectations is placed on people. But people by nature are not going to be consistent. You cannot expect anyone to be consistent. Very often we want people to be consistent. We ourselves are not consistent. So very often our happiness leads to some form of disappointment. It always happens. This is the nature of the world. But if you connect to Krishna, then that happiness is eternal. So the first thing we should understand is that Krishna doesn't take birth. It is not the birth of Krishna. It is the appearance of Krishna. Anyone who is born must die, right? For one who is born, death is certain. That is what the Bhagavad Gita says. So Krishna is not born and therefore he doesn't die. The other thing that's very important is at the time when Krishna appeared in this world, right? And that is Janmashtami. If you all are good astrologers and you go and look at the signs under which he came, Rohini, and if you look at the constellations, you'll find that actually at that time when Krishna was going to come, it was not by its nature an auspicious time. The moon was waxing, by the way. It was not a full moon, right? It's Ashtami, it's not Purnima. So it wasn't an auspicious time by Vedic calculations. We're always looking for auspiciousness by asking when's a good time to have something, when's a good time to do a ceremony. We look for that. But when Krishna was coming into the world, there was nothing auspicious about the world. But because Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the constellations lined up to become auspicious. And the moon, which was waxing, became full. Because Bhagavatam tells us the moon was joyous that the Supreme Lord was coming. And when the moon is joyous, it is full. Just like when we are joyous, we feel very full. So the moon was full. So the second thing to remember about Janmashtami, it is not that Krishna appeared at an auspicious time. The appearance of Krishna is auspicious. And when you invoke Krishna into your life, then everything that is inauspicious can be transformed into auspiciousness. This is the second thing that Shastras tell us. Otherwise, what very often happens is, because we see Krishna from material lenses, we want to find a good time to fit Krishna in. And that's what we do with Krishna in our lives also. Very often, Krishna is not the first person we turn to. We try everything, and then if all else fails, we turn to Krishna. Very often, our appointment with God is not the most solid appointment that we have. The most solid appointment that we have is generally our medical appointments, or dental appointments that we can't break, isn't it? So we go for it. We're very diligent about it. But an appointment with God, either we keep it at the morning so that we can do it very quickly because we have so many other things to do, or we keep it at night because we've done everything and, we haven't spoken to God, so we have to speak to Him. But actually, if you want to invoke Krishna, you have to be consistently remembering Him. Now, it's not an easy feat to consistently remember someone, but Shastras give us a good example. If you go to work and you're working, you've got a desk, you're going to work every day, but you've got a loving family at home. Every time, most of the time, you either have a picture of them or you have something to remind yourself of who you're working for besides your boss. And even though you are doing all this work, I think all of you have the experience that you know at the back of your head why you do this and for whom you do this. And when times are difficult, you always fall back on people whom you love. That is the measure of your consistency. And therefore, that same principle can be transformed when we try to remember Krishna. If you chant Krishna's names like the way we chanted this Maha Mantra, if you chant it every day for about 10-15 minutes, at the beginning of the day, end of the day, you will find that your consciousness becomes changed. Why? Because you are touching, right? And you're connecting with something which is transcendental. That's why the word mantra is used. Man means mind, and tra means resting place. So you can try chanting anything material in the world. Chant anything, Coca-Cola, whatever you want. If I did Coca-Cola chanting for 15 minutes, Anshul Mataji will never call me back next year. Because there's no vibrations to it. But if you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, and you actually chant it, Don't be stingy about chanting. It's free, by the way. You don't lose anything when you chant. But chanting is very powerful. Some people say that in Kali Yuga, we should sit down, meditate, and be silent. Silence is good, but if you can control your mind in such a way that your mind is free of matter, then very good. But the practical thing is, it's very difficult to do that. That's why you're showing us this right now. Because even if you get tired of hearing me, at least you can see Krishna. And by seeing Krishna, you are remembering him. So that is the point here. Somehow or another, do not forget Krishna, and somehow or another, always remember Krishna. If you were to ask what's the axiomatic ending to all that we discuss, it's really the two sentences. That somehow or another, find a way, right, to remember Krishna and never forget him. And the easy way is to see him, to read about him. Krishna book, Bhagavad Gita, these books that you see, we read them daily. And not only do we read them, we study them. And after studying them, we think about them. After thinking about them, we contemplate on them. And after contemplating on them, then you feel about it. And then you will yourself to do something. Bhishma Dev in Bhagavatam said a very beautiful point. He said, thinking, feeling, and willing. This is the way to advance in God consciousness. If you think enough of something, you will feel for it. Am I right? If you think long enough, if you meditate on something, you start developing some feelings for it. And when you feel for it, you will yourself to do something about it. It's true. Now, all of you must have got invitation from Mataji. So what you did was you started thinking, should I go, should I not, should I not? And as you thought and thought and thought, you felt, yeah, maybe I should go. It's a Wednesday, but never mind, let me go. And the moment you felt enough for it, then you willed yourself to get into the car, and then you came here. But if you didn't think, feel, and will, you'll not be able to move. So this is actually a science, which is why we tell everyone, bhakti is not sentimental. Bhakti is steeped in philosophy. Religion without philosophy is sentimentalism. Philosophy without religion is mental armchair speculation. Nothing else. There are so many philosophers in the world, they'll sit down and talk and talk and talk and talk, but they do nothing. You know, there were 3 men and they were waiting for a mango from a tree to fall. It was just there, ripe. And they were just waiting. And as they were waiting, a bird came and sat on the branch of the mango, that mango branch, and then there was a gust of wind and the mango dropped. Now when the mango dropped, the men looked at the mango. The whole objective had been to get the mango. But after it dropped, before they could eat it, the first man said, what do you think caused the mango to drop? The second man said, I think it was the gust of wind. Third man said, no, it was the weight of the bird. The first man who asked the question said, I think it was a combination of both. And so they started discussing and discussing and discussing. And a boy walked by and he saw 3 men speaking about the mango. And he saw the nice, beautiful, tasteful looking mango, picked up the mango, bit into the mango, enjoyed the mango, and walked away with the mango. And after the 3 men had satisfied their mind on the speculative nature of what caused the mango to fall, they looked down. But by then the mango was gone. The problem with us today is that we speak hours and hours about God. Sometimes we have philosophical deep discussions. But after that, what? What are we going to do about it? Are we changing our lives for him? Are we acting on it? Action without words is better than words without action. This is very important. Very important. You may not be able to, someone may be illiterate and cannot read the Gita. But if they can understand the spirit of the Gita and act on the Gita, it is better than someone reading the Gita but never acting on the Gita. You see the point? So, this is what Janmashtami is about. And do you know that at the appointed time when Krishna was about to come, right? Devaki Mata and Vasudev, you both know his parents, right? They were in jail. They were shackled by Kamsa because Kamsa was told at the point of their wedding, just when he was becoming a nice charioteer to ride Devaki and Vasudev, he was told by a disembodied voice that you fool, the 8th child of this woman is going to kill you. And he got down, took out his sword, and he wanted to kill Devaki. And Vasudev stopped him. And Vasudev told him, what is the point of killing your sister now? You will lose all your reputation. Let me do one thing. Let us have our first child, if at all there is a child. This is a voice that spoke of the 8th child. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is your sister. I promise you now on my word that I will give you a child every time it is born, if you're not satisfied. And then you can do what you want. But give us a chance to move away from this. Vasudev was very smart. He realized that there was no stopping Kamsa at that point of time. But he had to appeal to some kind of logic to him. And Kamsa thought of his reputation more than anything else, because he was ready to uproot the throne and take over from his father Ugrasena. He was ready to do that. He didn't want anything coming in between. So then he decided, let me just do that. And so he said, fine, but the child that comes, I will want it. So what happened was, Vasudev gave his word. And when the first child was born, the first child's name was Kirtiman. And Vasudev, like a true gentleman, took the child and gave it to Kamsa and said, take him. But Kamsa thought magnanimously, that is only the first child, keep him. And Vasudev went back. But Narada Muni came. Now very often people have a mistaken impression of Narada. Either he's characterized, in a very lowly fashion. Sometimes when you see movies, they don't understand the reason why Narada does certain things, because they don't understand Sastras. But Narada came and spoke to Kamsa and told him that, do you know that all the Devatas have taken birth in Gokul Vrindavan because Bhumi Devi has prayed to the Lord to come to this world to deliver her from all the burden of demonic kings like you. Now people may think, why in the world did Narada do that? But he did that because he wanted to hasten the coming of the Lord. He wanted to hasten the coming of the Lord. And so when Kamsa heard that, he thought, if Krishna is coming, I can't take a chance. Whether it's baby number 1, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. He pulled back Vasudeva, pulled back Devaki, he put them in the shackles and he put them in prison. And year after year, being in prison, many people don't realize Devaki Mata was not in prison for 1 year. She was in prison for 7 years. And then Krishna came on the 8th year, right? Every time a child was born, she was in prison. And the first 6 children who were born, they were all taken by Kamsa and they were killed. But Sastras tell us that these 6 children were not normal children. In previous lives, they were the sons of Marichi. And Marichi came from the mind of Brahma. These 6 children represent actually the servants, or rather the enemies of the mind. They represent greed, kama, krodha, moda, madaha, matsarya, lobaha. They represent greed, envy, hankering. They represent all the 6 enemies of the mind. And therefore, each child that was killed was actually purifying the womb of Devaki. So they were not ordinary children. And therefore, they came to represent something very deep, very significant. When Devaki was about to give birth to a 7th child, Krishna instructed Yogamaya. And he told Yogamaya that you please come. And now you will transfer the child that is in her womb now, the 7th son, transfer him to the womb of Rohini, who is actually in Nanda Maharaj's house in Vrindavan. And Rohini was another wife of Vasudeva. So the son born to Devaki was transferred by Yogamaya to the womb of Rohini. And he would be Rohini Nandan. He would be known as Balaramji. To the rest of the world, it appeared as if Devaki had a miscarriage. But actually it was a transference. And Krishna told Yogamaya, at the last point, when I'm going to come now, because 7th child has been born, unknown to Kamsa. Now 8th child, I will be born. And when I come into this world, you will become Yogamaya. You are my energy. Krishna is supreme powerful and Yogamaya is supreme power. And Krishna gave the benediction to Yogamaya that because you are coming to serve me in this pastime, you will be celebrated and worshipped throughout the world in all your different forms as Durga, Ambika, Kali Mata. In whichever form that you hear about Yogamaya, you will be worshipped because of what you have served me in. And so Yogamaya vanished. And the night was dark. And Krishna appeared. Now, he didn't appear in the womb of Devaki, right? That's very important. Krishna appeared first in the mind of Vasudeva. He appeared in the mind of Vasudeva. And from the mind, Vasudeva transferred Krishna into his heart, because the heart is the seat of the Lord. And because Vasudeva was so pure, without any impurities, there was plenty of space for Krishna. Plenty of space. When our hearts are filled with impurity, then Krishna is silent. We can't hear him. But if our hearts are pure, we can hear Krishna. So then Vasudeva took Krishna from his heart and he transferred Krishna into the heart of Devaki Mata. And so when you read Shastras, Krishna was never in the womb of Devaki like an ordinary child. She didn't have to go into labor. She didn't need the epidural. She didn't need anything like that, right? She just needed to concentrate on Krishna because he was in her heart. He was in her heart. So our acharyas tell us that the birth of Krishna or the appearance of Krishna was actually a heart-to-heart relationship. How nice. It is actually a heart-to-heart relationship. And so in that way, Krishna manifested himself at the auspicious time, midnight, Janmashtami. And when he manifested himself, he didn't manifest himself as a two-arm form like you see him here. He manifested himself in the four-arm form of Vishnu. This is to prove to the naysayers that he is not ordinary. But when Devaki Mata saw him like that, she prayed that he should look just like a child. And so Krishna transformed himself into the infant that you see him, the little boy that he will grow up into. And so this is how Krishna came into the world. And Krishna thanked Devaki and Vasudeva because in previous life, they had been great sages. They actually had the great benediction of receiving Krishna in the form of Prishnigarbha. And then late, even before that, as Vamandev, right? So Krishna came 3 times to Vasudeva and Devaki. 1 time as Vamandev, 1 time as Prishnigarbha, and the final time as Krishna. And then Krishna had the final most important instruction. He told them, now you must bring me to Yashoda Mata in Vrindavan. Imagine, Devaki and Vasudeva spent years and years and years of austerity just to receive Krishna. And yet Krishna told them that they would never have the fortune, so to speak, of actually growing up with him. Because after he was born, for the next 11-12 years, he will be in Vrindavan. And then after that, he would go to Dwarka. And he would just see them for a while only. He would never ever come back to Gokul in that sense. But Vasudeva and Devaki never despaired because they knew Krishna was always in their hearts. It didn't matter to them. They had actually done a great service to Krishna and they wanted to be instruments in his hands. And so in the dark of night, Vasudeva got up because the shackles were gone by Yogamaya's potency. All the guards went to sleep. The doors opened and Krishna was carried by Vasudeva. It was a rainy night and Anantasesh came out to give shelter to the Lord because he's Balaram. And so when Vasudeva came to Yamuna river, he thought, how am I going to cross it? But Yamunaji separated herself, right? Just like the beautiful bridge, that was built for Lord Ram and how the ocean cooperated there. In the same way, Yamuna cooperated here. And Yamunaji wanted so much to touch Krishna, but she couldn't. But she prayed hard and the Lord realized that she wanted him to just touch her, to bless her. And so the Lord fell out of the hands of Vasudeva. And Vasudeva panicked because he thought he had lost Krishna. But it was part of Krishna's ability to not only give blessings to Vasudeva, but to allow Yamunaji to also have his touch. And Vasudeva picked him up and carried him right to the house of Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan. Everyone was sleeping, including Yashoda Mata. He put Krishna there and he took the daughter that Yashoda Mata had given birth to and he brought her back to the jail. The doors closed, the chains came back and the child started crying and Kamsa thought the 8th child is born. But Krishna had left already and Kamsa came down to take this child. It was a girl and Devaki Mata said, my dear brother, this 8th child is a girl. She will not harm you. She is your niece. Don't do this. But he picked her up anyway And he was going to dash her down when she suddenly assumed the powerful form of Yogamaya in all her 8-armed splendor. And she laughed at him. Demons don't like being laughed at. And she said, Kamsa, you are a fool. The first disembodied voice said, Kamsa, you're a fool. At the end of the pastime, also Yogamaya said, you are a fool. The 8th child of Devaki is born. Do you really think that you would be able to vanquish him? And in doing so, Yogamaya vanished. And Kamsa became very afraid. He turned to Devaki and he turned to Vasudeva and he begged forgiveness from them. And then guess what he told them? He said, my dear sister, do not lament for the children that have been born and died. The soul is eternal. It is never going to die. We should not lament. Sastras tell us demons are like that. They are very good with Sastras when it suits them, when you want to use it. You know, sometimes we have that tendency. If we want to use something, we use it for advantage. Otherwise, we discard it, right? Lawyers are the worst. I should know, right? We are always, on either side of the camp. There are times when we advance an argument which is to our client's favor. And sometimes if it's not, we bury the argument. And that is what Kamsa did too. And so Kamsa thought that he had gotten away with it. And Devaki and Vasudeva were so saintly that they forgave Kamsa. And they said, everything is now in Krishna's hands. When Kamsa went back, he should have been a good person, right? But he was not. Because he got into what we call Asat Sangha. All of you today are in Sadhu Sangha because you're remembering Krishna. In the company of drunkards, even if you drink mineral water, eventually you'll become a drunkard. In the company of saintly people, even if you are a drunkard, you can become saintly because of association. When Kamsa went back to his palace, Bhagavatam tells us that he was in the company of all the other fellow demons. And they said, why are you so foolish? All we have to do now is make sure that we pass a decree that all children born on that day of Janmashtami must be killed. And we will do that. And thus began the reign of terror of Kamsa for the next 12 years. But within that 12 years, Krishna would kill every demon that Kamsa sent. And eventually, he will oust Kamsa also. Jai Krishna Janmashtami ki. So I hope, in this short time that we had, I hope that many of these points that come directly from Sastras will illuminate us. And when you look very deeply at these pastimes, you realize there's so much of details, so much of knowledge, and so much to learn from. So remember, the next time someone says Krishna was born, he appeared. And he never came from the womb. He came from the mind to the heart, and from the heart to the heart. So if we want to receive Krishna for Janmashtami, what should we do? We should receive him in our hearts. That's the meaning of Janmashtami. And don't be a devotee only on Janmashtami. We have different kinds of devotees. We have festival devotees, once a year devotees, once a week devotees. We have devotees in difficult times. But devotee must be a devotee at all times. That is consistency. In your material relationships, imagine if your wife or husband only loves you when he feels like it, only takes care of you when she feels like it. Imagine fathers and mothers, if you said that today I don't feel like, I'm not in the mood to take care of my daughter, so never mind. Tomorrow I feel like it, I'll do it. You won't do it. Unconditionally, whether you like it or not, you will serve them. So don't wait for the day when you are in love with God. Start serving him. By serving him, a more mature love will develop. It is not a sentimental love we speak about. It is actually crystallized in our actions. That is very important. Thank you so much for your time. Are there any questions? Are there any violent objections? Yeah, we're going to do Kirtan. Just before Kirtan, yes? Yes. So I'll do 10 minutes of Kirtan, you can do Aarti. No problems. If there's no questions, then can I invite everyone, if you have time tomorrow, from 7 p.m. onwards, we will have the program at the Singapore Khalsa Association. You all know where it is, right? Tessenson Road. It starts at 7 with a bit of Aarti. There's Kirtan. Most of it is Kirtan. Today is very short, but there will be hours of Kirtan. And we will have a drama by the children, the youths. We have a very active youth program. We have a very active children's program, right? We have boys and girls who are teenagers but who come every week to have programs, who chant, who read, who are very normal, going to universities and doing everything. So Krishna consciousness doesn't mean that it will disrupt your life. Don't be worried that, you'll become a sadhu and you won't continue with normal life. We are all quite normal people, right? So don't worry about that. At midnight, our program will end. We will have darshan of Krishna almost all the way from 7 p.m. all the way till midnight. So you're more than welcome to join us. And if you ever like these programs and you want to have these programs, then Anshul Mataji knows my contact. You're always welcome to contact us. If we can come at a particular time that's convenient for you, we'll be happy to do that. Thank you very much. Are you ready to sing? Loudly?
Yes.
Yeah? Just now it was very nice. Thank you very much. But I think we can still sing more loudly. And we can all clap also. Right? Tomorrow if you come, you'll see devotees just dancing and chanting. And if you like to do that, you're more than welcome to do that too. Let's chant Krishna's names. Vande Krishna Nanda Kumara, Nanda Kumara Madana Gopala, Madana Gopala Mohana Rupa, Mohana Rupa Nanda Kumara, Jaya Jaya Deva Hari, Jaya Jaya Deva Hari, Vande Krishna Nanda Kumara, Nanda Kumara Madana Gopala, Madana Gopala Mohana Rupa, Mohana Rupa Nanda Kumara, Jaya Jaya Deva Hari, Jaya Jaya Deva Hari, Hari Bol. Vande Krishna Nanda Kumara, Nanda Kumara Madana Gopala, Madana Gopala Mohana Rupa, Mohana Rupa Nanda Kumara, Jaya Jaya Deva Hari, Jaya Jaya Deva Hari, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hari Bol. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I can't hear you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Harinam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gopal, Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana, Hari Govinda, Jaya Jaya, Govinda, Jaya Jaya, Gopal, Jaya Jaya, Govinda, Jaya Jaya, Gopal, Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana, Hari Govinda, Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana, Hari Govinda, Jaya Jaya, Jai Radha Govinda Ji ki, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Gopala, Radhe 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 Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Gopala, Radhe 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 Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Gopala, Radhe 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 Govinda. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jai Shri Krishna Janmashtami Maho Maho Sattva ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Nitai Gaura Premanande. Thank you so much, Mataji, and thank you so much, Prabhu, for having us over, and wishing all of you a very, very happy and very blissful Krishna Janmashtami. Mataji, over to you for your arati. Yeah, please.